Hey class, this is CRJS240 Criminology. We are going to review Chapter 5, which discusses trait theories. All right. If we look at the development of the trait theory, Chapter 5 talks about the view that criminals have physical or mental traits that make them different. And this actually this theory or this concept also began with Caesar Beccaria, who was, if you remember, from rational choice theory, right? There is a biological theory, or the biological theory had many supporters in the very early 20th century who linked criminals to such body traits as like their body build, the structure of their skull, their jawline, how far their forehead protruded. There were also early efforts to link criminality to mental illness, to intelligence, and maladaptive personalities. These thought processes pretty much fell out of favor as social theories started to develop a little bit more and became a little bit more plausible. Okay. In the early 1970s, there was a publication, excuse me, there was a publication called Sociobiology, The New Synthesis, and it was written by Edmund Wilson. And biological explanations of crime once emerged once again during this time in this publication. Trait theorists today recognize that crime-producing interactions involve both personal traits as well as environmental factors. And if only a few offenders become persistent repeaters, what sets them apart from the rest of the criminal population, right? Maybe some type of crime-producing trait. So my question to you is, do you think that people are born criminals? Think about that. Can you be born a criminal? Is there a certain trait that you inherited from your mom or your dad regarding that makes you more prone to criminal behavior or criminality? Okay. If we start to differentiate between biochemical conditions that produce crime, biochemical conditions are believed to influence antisocial behavior. Biocriminologists maintain that an improper diet can cause chemical and mineral deficiencies and imbalances, and that can lead to cognitive and learning deficits and problems. And these factors in turn are ultimately associated with antisocial behaviors. There are abnormal levels of male sex hormones, that's our androgens, and that can produce an aggressive behavior. Excessive amounts of testosterone, the principal male hormone, right, has been linked to aggressive behaviors. Exposure to lead and other environmental contaminants have also been linked to emotional and behavioral disorders. So Chapter 5 also goes into talking about that neurophysiological condition and how it's associated with crime. Inherited or acquired neurological abnormalities are believed to control behavior throughout the lifespan. So there has been talks that brain damage or people who suffer from TBIs, traumatic brain injury, that is either acquired during prenatal or during birth or soon after, may lead to learning disabilities and other problems that are linked to antisocial behaviors. Okay. If we wanted to cite some examples of the different research techniques that have been used to link genetics to crime, another biosocial theme is that human traits associated with criminality have some type of genetic basis. According to this view, antisocial behavior is inherited. The genetic makeup of parents is passed down to their children, and if there is any type of genetic abnormality, is linked to a variety of antisocial behaviors as well. To test this view, criminologists have compared the behavior of siblings versus those kids that maybe are adopted, or how about twins? So there have been studies that have tried to tackle this exact claim, and that is a entire field. There's a lot of research on it. So if that's one of your interests, definitely there's a lot of groundwork out here that has already been established. If we look at the evolutionary view of crime, right? Human traits that produce violence and aggression have been advanced by the long process of human evolution. Okay. According to the evolution theory, males who are aggressive and violent produce the most children, and these traits have dominated human society. Crime and violence are therefore products of millions of years of human breeding. So what's your thought process on that? Like, does that seem plausible? Does anybody buy into that diet plays a part, or testosterone levels play a part, or even evolutionary changes? If we look at the psychodynamic perspective, this the id, if you know about that, is the primitive part of people's mental makeup. Then you have the ego, right? And that's shaped by your learning, that's shaped by experiences. And then you have the superego, which reflects the morals and the values of parents and significant others, and who has played and fed into your life, your mind, your development. Criminals are id-driven people, right? Who suffer from weak or damaged egos. And crime is a manifestation of feelings, or of oppression, or the inability to develop the proper psychological defenses and rationales to keep these feelings under control. If we look even further to the behavioral theory of crime, right? People are not born with now these theorists say that people are not born with the ability to act violently. Rather, they learn to be aggressive throughout their life experiences. These experiences might include personally observing others acting aggressively to achieve some type of goal, or observing others being rewarded for violent acts. Kids who watch, this is where the argument of where media plays a part, right? So kids who watch violent media may learn that violence is rewarded, and that violence can be used as a solution to problems encountered in everyday life. Like if you look at, what is the effect of violent movies, video games, right? That's a big one. How does that impact young kids who are playing these games or exposed to these movies, and do they see it as a reward? Thus, does that play a part on their development? And all right, my apologies. So kids, again, think about the impact of kids watching violent media, and how they view violence as a reward, or if it outweighs the risk. If we start to articulate the cognitive processes related to crime, crime-prone people may have cognitive deficits and use information incorrectly when they make their decisions. So they view crime as an appropriate means to satisfy their immediate personal needs, which take precedence over more distant social needs, such as obedience to the law. People with cognitive deficits may misread behavioral clues and misinterpret what others are doing. So therefore, they see a harmless gesture as a provocation, and they generally react accordingly. If we look at the elements of personality related to crime, right? Sociopathic, psychopathic, antisocial behavior, people are not able to empathize with others. And they're very short-sighted, and they're very hedonistic. These traits make them prone to problems ranging from psychopathology to drug use, sexual promiscuity, and violence. Factors related to personality problems include improper socialization. So they may be considered socially awkward or not able to function well in even small groups. They generally separate themselves. They may have a psychopathic parent. They may experience parental rejection and have had a lack of love during childhood and received inconsistent discipline as a youth as well. And lastly, with Chapter 5, proponents of the nature theory. So if we look at the association, there's a controversy over the association between intelligence and crime. Proponents of the nature theory argue that intelligence is largely determined genetically, and that ancestry determines IQ, and low intelligence is linked to criminal behavior. Well, there are proponents of the nurture theory that argue that intelligence is not inherited, and that low IQ parents do not necessarily produce low IQ children. The IQ criminality debate is probably a very ongoing one. Its measurement is beset by, there's a lot of methodological problems that make it difficult to try to monitor and to study and to come up with basically an answer to how does that nurture theory or that IQ, does your IQ affect or make you more prone to criminality or not? And that's it with Chapter 5. Have a good day.